Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Hittin Jets podcast, hosted by me, Mike Morrell. I'm joined by the fellas, Nick Antoniadis, Owen Doran. And I'm going to go right into it. So, today, the Jets are having a joint practice with the Giants, and they're preparing for their Saturday game against the Giants as well. So, you guys been watching preseason, so I'm going to go asking you first, Nick. What are your takeaways from this?
So my big takeaways about this preseason so far for the Jets is that Olan Fashanu is looking like the real deal. I mean, we drafted him this year. A lot of people were kind of like questionable about getting him because you had someone like a Brock Bowers that was there because the Jets do need a tight end, which I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. But I've been really liking Fashanu. He's been hitting right tackle and he's been playing most of the preseason games, and he's starting to fit well for this Jets team. So I've been really happy to seeing Fashanu gel well with this Jets team. And also, I'm liking to see what I've been seeing in Will McDonald as well. Last year, he was kind of iffy in the season, but now he's starting to get a little bit comfortable. I was really hoping so because that pick last year that the Jets got in Will McDonald was kind of iffy. It was more of like a fit pick, but I think he's gonna fit well for this Jets special team, and I've been liking to see what I've been seeing from McDonald and Vashano.
Yeah, I've been liking McDonald as well. He looked great against Washington and Carolina. Um, I wasn't happy with that pick when it happened. I thought it was a bit like it was bad business to trade up for a guy that wasn't projected to go around where they took him. I thought like they could have stayed or even went into the second round and still got Will McDonald. But regardless of that, I mean, he's still shown that he can, be a decent piece for the Jets this season, especially amidst all this Hassan Reddick nonsense. It's kind of nice that we can see a guy get sacks and whatnot. I don't think he's going to replace Hassan Reddick, not even close to the same type of player, but it is kind of nice to see him kind of mold into a decent player. The main guy that I've been looking at for the Jets in preseason is Braylon Allen. I think he's been great. He was great against Washington. He had 54 yards. Wasn't as great against Carolina. I think he only had like 25 or 26 yards. But he still showed like glimpses of being a great back, especially behind Brees Hall, who I think is probably the Jets' best player going into next season, either him or Sauce Gardner. Um, Brees is going to be super important for the Jets, and his health is a major concern for the Jets. So I think bringing in someone like Allen and him showing that he can, be that second backup to Brees Hall is going to be great for his health and for the Jets moving forward.
Have guys like Garrett Wilson or Brees Hall played in preseason?
No,
No,
or I
they
think
haven't.
Garrett Wilson might have gotten in, but I haven't seen Brees Hall play.
No, they purposely not playing the starters.
At all?
No,
I
they
mean,
they usually don't do that.
I would have loved to see, how they gel in, even with this quarterback Peasley that I was so bored of, or Tyrod Taylor had a few reps. And I think against Carolina game, all their points came off field goals, which I'm not going to look too much into because, again, it's the preseason. All right, so to the next point, you guys kind of touch on it. I was going to ask, what's your biggest rookie breakout like predictions? For me, I think Owen touched on it. Braylon Allen. This guy is, I think, his age. I'm not sure how old he is, but it's the junior year of college, and he's
He's
built like a
20 years
tank.
old.
He's 20.
Yeah, he's 20.
It's crazy how he's built like that. I think like obviously Brees is going to get a lot of touches, but having him in the goal line, a place where the Jets can't finish, I might even like consider having him on my bench for fantasy.
I mean, yeah, I think the Jets are going to be a super run heavy offense as well. I mean, their two receivers are Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a big question mark. I think he's a great receiver. It's just his health is up always in question. So he might miss. He's definitely going to miss time this season. So we can't really lean on Rodgers as much as like people would want because obviously like Mahomes, Allen, those teams fully depend on their quarterbacks. But I think the Jets are going to be a little bit different, where Brees Hall is our main contributor on offense, and we kind of run everything through him. So I think that's why Braylon Allen is so important because you kind of need to just disperse the touches for Brees Hall, someone who's been injured both seasons of his 2 years in the league. So I think Braylon Allen's going to be super super important for the Jets.
Yeah, I'm looking at Allen's basically just his like overall stats. He's 6'1" right now, and he is 245 pounds. So he's an absolute tank, like you mentioned, Mike. My only slight concern that I really have about Allen is he does have an injury history. Last year when he played, he had a shoulder injury and he had an ankle injury, and then in 2021 he had an injury in both of his legs and he had to get surgery in both of his legs. So overall, like I know that the Jets, they'll find a way to make him super healthy. They're gonna probably make him be more of like someone that will just push in for those 1 yard touchdown lines, but I am a little bit slightly concerned about his injury. And look, he's 20 years old. We don't want to push that. We don't want to, he's too young to like waste his potential. You know what I mean? That's why I'm still pushing for Fashanu as my player to be to look forward to this season. They did pick him at the 11th pick because they traded away their 10th pick to the Vikings and ended up screwing them over because McCarthy is out for the entire year. So and also, like Fashanu, he was supposed to be drafted like much lower in the draft, and they got him in the 11th. So I'm excited to see where he is going, but I like Allen. It's just that he has an injury history, but we'll see.
I think in the last game they switched Vashanu to the right side. I think that's where
Yeah.
he had to be if he was to play. I saw some highlights. Obviously, like it's weird being on the right side. It's like being a lefty when you're a righty.
Mhm.
Oh, and you had something to say? I was gonna say something else.
I was gonna say, I was just gonna add to it. A lot of Jet fans were upset, and I don't know if like majority were upset with the Fashanu pick. I thought a lot understood it, but I think the crowd of like people that were upset were kind of looking to get a guy like Bowers, a big name, who you would see on the field. I think people are going to be a little disappointed with the rookie class this year because we're just not going to see as much output from them. But I think that's mainly because the position the Jets are in. They're a win now team. They're title contenders. They're not looking to add like a guy like Brock Bowers. I think also people are forgetting that the Jets line is extremely injury prone. Someone like Alexander Farrah Tucker is always injured every single year, so we do need depth at that position. We're expecting to lose guys. We're not expecting to lose Conklin. He's not the most important player in our roster. He's not going to get that many targets. So I don't think a guy like Bowers, even though he would have been, he's a great player. I think he's going to do good things for Las Vegas. I just don't think he's going to be making that big of an impact for the Jets. Other like Fashanu is going to be, might not start week 1, 2, or 3, but after a couple of injuries, he's going to be in there. So like he's going to be vital to the Jets offense, much more than a guy like Brock Bowers would have been.
I remember on draft night when they picked up Fashanu, the first thing that Mike texted me was Mikael Becton 2.0.
Yeah. So it's just I like these picks. Obviously, I think Fashanu is a good pick, but I guess I got kind of spoiled with getting Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall. Like I don't know, in me, I like seeing offensive stars shine. Like I with the Jets, I said last time with quarterbacks, I've never seen like really a good offensive talent on the team. Like when I was little, it was like what's Antonio Holmes, Dustin Keller. Those weren't really guys that I wanted to root for. I always wanted a bigger guy.
Mhm.
On Braylon Allen, the point like when you mentioned he was 20 years old, he actually could like sit this year, not too much. Obviously, he's gonna get some reps, but he could like shadow Brees Hall, and he could still develop if he's having these injury problems or this injury past. That's a beautiful thing that he's young that age. But
Mhm.
oh, and you mentioned Mike Williams. I didn't. He brought up this point. I didn't tell you guys before. I'm gonna say it now. What do you guys think that contract's gonna look like panning out with his injury history? How many games he's gonna miss? Like maybe same thing next year. He's gonna be like an Alan Lazard that just fades into the bottom of the depth chart.
No. I mean, Adam Lazard was a bad signing overall. I mean, his max yards, I think, was like 800 or 700 in a season. I don't think he was ever brought in to be like a star-studded receiver like Mike Williams, even though Mike Williams isn't a star by any means, but he's a receiver in the sense that he runs routes and he goes out for touchdowns. Alan Lazard's a little different. It was also a pandering signing. You were trying to kind of swoo Aaron Rodgers into joining the team, so you went out and got some of his friends. But Alan Lazard, I mean, he was not very good. I don't think we're going to see much of him. Mike Williams, we know Mike Williams can give you production on offense. It's just a matter of how many games is he going to play. I think I would expect him to miss at least like 3 or 4. That's just kind of expected from him. So, but we've seen Mike Williams with the Chargers. He's a great receiver. It's just a matter of how often is he available.
It sucks now because I just got a report 2 days ago. He does have a knee injury, but he is still expected to be in practice. What Going back to the Mike Williams comparing to Alan Lazard, Mike Williams, when he's healthy, he can contribute to a team. Alan Lazard, he had that one little good game when he was with the Packers, and then he got a big paycheck from the Jets just so they can lure over Aaron Rodgers, like you said, Owen. I really liked the signing about with Mike Williams, but a torn ACL is really tough to get back to. And especially with his history when it comes to injuries, it's going to be a little bit skeptical of what we're going to be seeing out of Mike Williams. I liked it, but I can expect him to play. This is going to be a little bit of a a controversial thing here, but I do expect him to play at least 10 games this season out of it. Look, because he has the history when it comes to injuries. I don't know what to expect out of Mike Williams. I'm just expecting him to be like, okay, we're guaranteed that he's going to get hurt, you know? So,
I want to
but
say
we'll see.
he's been in the league for at least 5-6 years, maybe more. And I'm not even sure how many full seasons he's played. But again, we talked about last episode, the turf on MetLife. We're concerned with Rodgers being back there, but we also have to think about Mike Williams when he comes back.
Yeah.
I mean, he only played like 3 games last season, so there's obviously concerns with that. I mean, one, is he up to game speed? It's been a while since he's been on the field. Two, the thing is about the injuries as well. It's not one specific thing. Like, it's just all over the place. Like, he had a broken back one year, then a torn ACL another year, a banged up ankle another year. It's just his entire body is just like brittle. He can't I don't think that football is the sport he was meant to play, but he's obviously very good at it. So I mean, if he can somehow string together a healthy season and be available for, I don't know, 12 games, that would be huge for the Jets.
At least the playoffs. But
Yeah, I mean, hopefully if he gets injured, hopefully it is early on. I mean, we can expect him to get injured. Let's hope it's week 1, 2, or 3 so that he can come back for the playoffs and make a push.
But I like the ideology of signing because he's a deep ball threat. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has that humongous arm. So
they definitely needed to add a receiver. So like they went out, they did that. They did their job. They were meant to do that.
They needed to get a center. You know, like that whole offseason, they were saying like, oh, Mike Evans is going to be signed with the Jets. They're going to be going out and acquiring Devontae Adams. Like they just don't get these players, but then they get a pretty respective contract to get Mike Williams. And we know that he has the expectations to do very well. In 2021, he played 16 games and he had 9 touchdowns. That's very good. And you can have that as your wide receiver too. That'd be pretty nice to have for Aaron Rodgers.
So to my other topic, it's our trade targets. So I'll start off. Obviously, I've been saying this last year too, Nick. I would love Devontae Adams if the money could work. I'm not even sure if he's worth as much of a package as you would give him last year. Again, I don't really know the market with these football wide receivers. I could see, like, what did Mark Cooper go for? Like a first rounder, but then some other guys will go for like 4th. I guess it depends on the contract.
Yeah.
Look, give the Raiders 2nd round pick, give them some more. If you could get Devontae on this team and have a threat besides Garrett Wilson, obviously Mike Williams we're just talking about would be nice, but again, it's a question mark. And who's behind him? Lazard, Corley,
Gibson,
Jason Brownlee.
That's what I would love. And like watching that Netflix receivers doc, they really highlighted how Devontae Adams struggled with the Raiders because he was always double teamed. And when he was open, Jimmy Garoppolo would throw it over his head or try to get him killed. So imagine you have older Devontae Adams and a pre-prime Devontae Adams. Who are you going to guard?
Well, another thing is when it comes to Devontae Adams, he knows how to play with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, his best season, probably like the most consistent that we ever seen. He was averaging, a touchdown a game. It was with Aaron Rodgers. And he specifically said he wants to play back with Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people were saying that we could be expecting the trade to happen before the season even starts. But my only question is, what are the Jets going to get rid of to get this top player? I mean, like you mentioned, you have someone like an Amari Cooper that, is trade for a first rounder or something like that. And then you have someone like Christian McCaffrey when he got acquired by the 49ers, and all they traded was third rounders. It's like you never know what they're going to be asking for and what the pieces is going to be. Personally, I would love Devontae Adams. I think that he would be very, very good for this Jets team. I wanted him last year, but maybe this could be the best time to just go for it because this is the best possible season for the Jets.
And it makes sense for the Raiders because where was Brock Bowers taken? Was it before Bo Nix? Because they missed out on some quarterbacks, which I guess they would have wanted to fill. I feel like he did go before Nix, right?
I want to say that he was picked the 15th or the 13th.
Yeah, I think he was 13th.
Oh, so he was after.
Yeah, I think it was 13th.
So they missed out, and now they have Gardner Minshew as quarterback, and obviously that's a step from Aiden McConnell or Jimmy Garoppolo, but still that's not much. So maybe it's time to plan for the future. They have a young tight end. Obviously, I think their defensive line is still really good. I don't see what's the point of holding on to a 32-year-old wide receiver if you're just gonna lose, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you said it right there, Mike. I think it's just time to move on to the future for the Raiders. They're not a good team. Like I know last season, they brought in Antonio Pierce and it kind of brought in like a rejuvenation for the team, and they kind of made a late season push, and things looked like they were on the up. And it continues to look that way for the Raiders. It looks like the team is buying into Antonio Pierce. They like having him as the head coach, but I think that is only going to take you so far. The talent on the roster isn't there. Obviously, they brought in Brock Bowers. They have Josh Jacobs, who I think is pretty average in my opinion. It takes him a while to heat up throughout the season. And then you have Devontae Adams, a 32-year-old wide receiver, playing with Gardner Minshew, who's on his, seventh team at this point? Like the Raiders are by no means a good team. They're going to be a bad team in a tough division, in a very tough conference, that they're not going to come close to the playoffs.
Josh Jacobs, just mention, Josh Jacobs signed with the Packers this offseason. So they have Zamir. So they have Zamir.
They have
White.
Zaire White. That's right. I can't even believe I forgot that. Exactly. They lost their best running back. The Raiders are by no means are going to be good, and I know that they're kind of telling themselves like, well, we'll wait on this for now. We'll see how the season starts. If we start off hot and we think we can make a push for the playoffs, then we're going to keep Devontae. It just makes no sense to me. There's no path forward with this team winning a Super Bowl with Devontae Adams on that team. They're 5-10 years removed from that point. So I think it's probably the best option for them would be just to take the picks from the Jets and let them have Devontae Adams. And then for the Jets, they shouldn't even be questioning whether or not they should do this. We mentioned it last week. The window is short. They have 2 years of Rodgers. They have to win. You have to win. You got to go get receivers. You know he's familiar with Rodgers. Mike mentioned receivers. That entire show seemed like a ad from Devontae agent to like get him off this team. Like he seemed miserable in the first 3 episodes of the show. He was talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo just doesn't throw the ball the same. The team's vibes are just not the same. And like every time he kept going back to, and I don't want to say I was happier in Green Bay or anything, but it's just he was clearly not fitting in with that Raiders team. Obviously, Antonio Pierce has changed that a little bit, but I think the roster alone is just not good enough. And someone like Devontae, who wants to win, coming towards the end of his career, that knows Rodgers, it's the perfect fit. It's the perfect fit for the Jets. They just have to go out and get it done.
The problem with the Raiders is that it just makes no sense for them. They miss out on Josh Jacobs. They drafted Brock Bowers, which personally for me, it made no sense to me. They already had 2 young tight ends. They had Michael Mayer, who is also 23 years old, and then they have Harrison Bryant, who is 26 years old, and then they go out and get Brock Bowers, who is 22 years old. What are they doing? Like, I think it was one of those situations that, okay, the best option was just go after that specific player. They don't look at, okay, we need a specific pick or whatever. It's like the same thing with the Falcons that they picked Penix. It's like they need a defense, but they get Penix. But I really think that it makes sense that you got to just get rid of your top players because you know in your mind that you have Gardner Minshew, which I'm totally fine as your quarterback. I mean, I like Minshew a lot, but if you get rid of Adams, you're going to get a lot of pieces and you're actually going to build for a future. Jacoby Myers is still a very good wide receiver. Getting rid of Devontae Adams, he wasn't getting that much playing time when he was with the Raiders. match him up back with a reunion and Aaron Rodgers, things are going to happen. And you're going to possibly get a good haul out of Adams. I don't even know what his contract is. What is does he have
Yeah,
like
I
it's
just
like
assume it's massive.
He needs to be
it's
renewed at the end of
definitely
the year. So like, that's kind of the big question mark around it all is he's going to have to get paid at the end of the year. And how willing are you to pay a 32, 33-year-old wide receiver? Which I think it kind of is a valid point to bring up because there are other guys on the market. We all know Brandon Ayuk is looking for a trade. Or we don't know if he is. He might be doing the same thing Debo did, and he's just holding out so that he can stay with the Niners on a better deal. But regardless, the Niners said he can shop, and teams have been talking to him. We see CeeDee Lamb has some issues boiling up in Dallas. T. Higgins, long time we've been hearing about him wanting to be his own number one receiver. So I mean, there's other names floating around who would be better long-term options for the Jets. So I think maybe like that's the only kind of like not criticism, but like point that I've heard getting mentioned against moving for Adams is there's other guys available that you can get out for a similar price, and they're going to be much better for the next 5-10 years.
my only concern is that well, not really concern, but my only criticism is that you know who Devontae Adams is. You know how he plays. You know that he is a top wide receiver. I get that he's 32, turning 33, and those are the years that wide receivers are starting to show a little bit of a downgrade. But with a name like Adams, go for it. Personally, for me, and I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be like you would spend that much. I don't know. Like I also don't know
My
what his
question would be, if you had the option between CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, or Devontae Adams, which one would you go with?
obviously CeeDee Lamb because he's the
CeeDee
best
Lamb,
option.
but like, so rank them though.
CeeDee. Okay, so you said CeeDee, Ayuk,
Higgins
Higgins,
and
and Adams.
yeah,
You
like I
see, like
personally would put Adams probably last on the list. Not saying he's bad,
I
but
would
I'd
put him over
probably have
Higgins.
him last on that list just because I think the other three will be better in the next 2-3 years.
I personally would put Adams a little bit over Higgins. I don't know, but that's mainly because Higgins is not really getting much receptions because of Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, if Higgins was in the shine light, like if he was in the spotlight, in the moments we've seen Jamar Chase get injured, like last year,
Yeah.
T. Higgins has proven he can be a wide receiver one. Obviously, that kind of creates some issues. Garrett Wilson's our wide receiver one, so I don't know if he'd really be too willing to come in on the Jets.
But also,
But if like
like,
a guy like
yeah,
CD came in, I'd be so happy to move Wilson to wide receiver too.
obviously, but like that's another thing. Like, would Higgins be happy to still be a wide receiver too? Because you know that Wilson's going to be a wide receiver one. I personally would say
Well, I
that
think
Wilson would be a wide receiver one over Devontae Adams. That's how much I like him.
I
That's,
don't
I
know.
mean,
I think
I
I
know,
think Higgins and Wilson would be kind of fighting for that spot.
yeah, that would
Like I
make
don't
sense.
think I don't think it would be clear cut. Wilson's the wide receiver one if T Higgins was also on the team. I think if
I mean,
Adams is on the team though, that kind of does take away from Wilson. The connection between him and Rodgers, he's probably going to get targeted a little bit more than Wilson would be.
but the thing is about Wilson is that we have seen how well he can play with crappy quarterbacks. We
Hmm.
haven't seen him play well with a good quarterback. We
True,
have
true.
seen T. Higgins play with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, true. That's a good
So
point.
that's, I mean, I want to see what Garrett Wilson can do with Aaron Rodgers. We've been
Yeah.
hearing this ever since Aaron Rodgers was acquired by the Jets. So like, I got to see what this looks like.
We still got to see if Nathaniel Hackett can run this offense though. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
I don't know. It looked like crap last year.
But that's because they only got him for Aaron Rodgers. That's why I
True.
need to see like Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett working together, you know? So like
Mm,
that's why I'm waiting for one more season. If this doesn't work out well, then they have to literally do a clean sweep of everything and Saleh, Douglas, and Nathaniel Hackett. Like they have to get rid of all of them. But that's pretty much it.
Did you have a tight end you want to talk about?
Their tight ends suck.
The tight ends are terrible. I mean, like, here's the thing about tight ends that I kind of want to say is that when you think of, I mean, obviously, when you think of a tight end, you think of the big ones: George Kittle, Travis Kelsey, Mark
Sam
Andrews,
Laporta.
Sam Laporta is now coming in. But when you think of just the background of other tight ends, all they're known for is to be a big body to cover your quarterback. Personally, for me, I would love to see excuse me, I would love to see a tight end that can take receptions. Tyler Conklin is not the guy. You saw a good amount in CJ Uzama, but you know, they just released him, whatever. The last time that we saw a tight end that actually got receptions was Chris Herndon, I believe it was back in the
Yeah.
2019 year. He was good. I really liked his game. But personally, for me, if you saw someone like a Brock Bowers, if you saw someone like a Sam Laporta just looming into the draft, wouldn't you be a little bit like maybe this could be a good opportunity because you have Aaron Rodgers, one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, to play with a young tight end? It's going to be a reverse of the Kansas City Chiefs. When you have Travis Kelce being thrown to a young quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and then boom, history is made. They won 3 Super Bowls.
I think, I don't know. I think the idea of a good tight end is nice. Like, obviously, you want to have great players in every position. I just don't think it's that important for the Jets. Like, I just don't think,
I know.
even though obviously they don't have the talent at the position, like, regardless, I don't think they're going to be getting a lot of targets. It would just take away from Wilson, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley. I'm not sure how much he's going to play his rookie season. From what I've heard, he's kind of like a trick play guy. So that might be fun to see with Nathaniel Hackett getting to use a little bit of his creativity. But I just don't think really would have utilized the tight end as much as people would have hoped. I think we're going to run the ball a lot. And then the times where we are throwing the ball, I'd rather be putting that down the field to a guy like Garrett Wilson than to throwing it out to a tight end for short yardage.
I mean, but to be fair, it worked well with the 49ers when they have, a wide receiving group of now. I mean, we don't know yet about Ayuk, but they have a Deebo Samuel. Then they have Christian McCaffrey. And then you have George Kittle. They all get pretty solid receptions, some more than others, but still. I mean, look, it would have been a pretty I actually just got a notification.
I think if we had Kyle Shanahan to figure it out, I'd be more keen on the idea. Just we have Nathaniel Hackett instead of the greatest offensive coach ever.
Fair. As we're talking about,
he just knows how to make it fit.
As we're talking about the tight ends right now, I just got a report that the Eagles just released CJ Uzomah. They did not get rid of Dallas.
Oh,
that would have been nice.
I'm gonna get excited.
No, that would be nice, but it just wouldn't work out. It's like the same thing with Dalvin Cook. Like, it sounds nice.
Dalvin Cook's not even in the league anymore.
I thought he signed like a mini deal with the Ravens.
Maybe a training camp deal, but I didn't see anything recently with him.
No, I think.
I mean, that's the lifespan of a running back. I mean, that's what happens.
I think in a few years, people will look back at the draft and Brock Bowers will be a star. And with O lineman, I can never tell. You
need a quarterback to become a star, though. Like, how is Brock Bowers going to become a star with Gardner Minshew, who probably won't even be the quarterback next year? Probably going to be somebody else.
They're going to have to draft
that's
someone.
True.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to draft, and it's such a weak quarterback draft. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to see who comes through, but like as of right now, I think it's Shedeur Sanders is the top ranked quarterback, and I mean, I'm not very impressed by him.
Who's the quarterback from Georgia that a lot of people are talking about?
Carson Beck? Is that the Texas guy?
I think that's the
Texas.
It's
Carson Beck. Yeah, Texas is Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning.
Oh yeah.
They also had someone transfer out who impressed as well. Can't remember where he went.
Let me just check. I'm going to just check this. Carson Beck is from Georgia. And then you have Will Johnson from Michigan. And then you have Sanders from Colorado that is most likely going to be heading to the Raiders.
And, I mean, Quinn Ewers as well. He's also going to be in the draft. I think he's been a little bit underrated in college football because, everyone's just been talking about Arch Manning. They all want to see him play for Texas. But, I mean, he's been the guy for them for the last 4 years. So he's pretty solid. But I think for the Raiders, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot with the Brock Bowers pick. They need a quarterback. Tight end is great and all until we've seen great tight ends play on teams without quarterbacks, and it's just they don't do anything.
Do you think they panicked? Because I feel like
100%.
Penix probably didn't expect. I mean, no one expected him to go that early, but I don't think the Raiders would have took him there. I feel like they probably would have tried to trade down, or maybe they didn't think Bo Nix was going to go that high. I think they came in looking for a quarterback. Something because their defense is not spectacular, but it's all right. And you talk about how many tight ends they have. I forgot they had Max Meyer, who has been really good. I don't know. They probably did panic.
I feel like if you're going to panic, you're better off going with like a position like offensive line or defensive line, just picking up some depth rather than going for a star.
Yeah, just go after the best option available.
They're just, I don't know. And it's just annoying me with this whole Devontae Adams business, dealing with the Raiders, thinking that they have a chance at the playoffs when they just obviously don't.
And then when they do make the playoffs, they don't go far. They get absolutely crushed. So
I mean, there's just no way they make the playoffs this year. There's just no
No.
way.
no, especially in that really tough division when you
Yeah, I
have
mean, they're gonna have to play the Chiefs twice. They're gonna have to play the Chargers. They're gonna have to play a bunch of the AFC teams. They're gonna be competing with those records in the AFC for the playoffs. Like, there's just no way. They're selling themselves a dream if they think they have any chance at making the playoffs. I think they're just still high on the fumes of like the new head coach because like obviously, new head coach comes in, the vibes go up. Everyone knows that. But like eventually, it's gonna level out. So I
Yeah.
think they're still just riding high on those fumes of Antonio Pierce, and they still think that that's going to carry over into this new season. It's just not.
I guess to stretch out this episode just one little bit, I'm going to ask Owen first because you said you predicted Jets to go 13-4. So I want your realistic finishing. What do you think the Jets are going? How far do you think they'll go?
I mean, I think they can make the Super Bowl. Realistically, I mean, yeah, realistically, I think they can make the Super Bowl. It's it's the NFL, so it's one game elimination. You show up on the day, you play your best, and winner goes through. I think it's hard to say though, like realistically, because the AFC is so tough. But like, yeah, I think conference championship is kind of what you're aiming for at least, like minimum conference championship. Even though that's still like a tough task, you still have to go through the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Bills, the Dolphins. So I think fans might be a little disappointed if they don't make it that far, but I think just playoffs is enough for me, honestly. Like if they make the playoffs, I'll be happy. I mean, it's been over a decade since they played in the playoffs. I think the last time they played a playoff game, I was like 9 years old. So, I mean, I think just being able to watch a playoff game this year, that would be good. But I think they're good enough to make it very far in the playoffs. It's just hard to say. With like if they were in the NFC, I would say they have to make the conference championship. Like it would be expected that they're at least a top 3 team in the NFC. But because they're in the AFC, it's a little harder to say.
Nick, what you thinking?
Now just thinking about it, if you're thinking about it in a realistic approach,
That's the thing, Jets fans, we could really go delusional. I guess New York fans in general.
I mean, it's just New York fans in general, but it's so like when you mention about they have to go up against the Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, Texans, even you have to throw in the Texans in the conversation. What I expect them to be, as a delusional Jets fan, I would say conference championship. But in a realistic approach, second round of the divisional, so the semis. Personally, it depends on who they go up against.
I think a better way to put it would be not just to say like how far they're going to make it because only 2 teams can make the AFC Championship game. So I think it would be a bit unfair to say like if it's the Chiefs Bengals, let's just hypothetically say it's them too. I think it's a bit unfair to say like the Ravens and the Jets and the Dolphins and the Bills like aren't. I mean, maybe the Bills. The Bills have they're not as good anymore. But like the Texans, Jets, I think it'd be a bit unfair to say those teams aren't on the same level. So I think that would be my like expectation for them to be on their level of like the tier 1 teams in AFC. So I'm not going to say like a round that they expect them to make because they can play great all season and then get matched up with the Ravens round 1 and lose. But I still expect them if they're competing with those teams, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine with that statement right there. And also, we have to see. I mean, I understand that it's playoffs; they can change. The Chiefs absolutely destroyed the Bengals during the regular season, and then the Bengals beat them in the championship when they went to the Super Bowl. So anything can honestly happen. So I like that.
I would be satisfied, like Owen said, just playoffs. We haven't seen that. I wasn't watching football when the Jets were there, so I've never seen them in the playoffs at all. But look, however far they go, playoffs, conference championship, Super Bowl, I'm assuming like if they don't win the whole thing, they'll have to build in it the next year, and hoping that Rodgers is still. I mean, we don't know how he is now, but hoping that
Hopefully he's still kicking after a year.
Yeah, hopefully he still wants to play first off and still can play.
Yeah.
What was that saying? You got to leave the football before the football leaves you. Yeah.
He did mention that he is healthier to the point that he is eligible to practice even if it's shitty weather. So like that's a good sign. But we'll see. I mean, Rodgers can change like that. So
Yeah, like he seems
hopefully,
like such a down
hopefully
earth
Jordan
person.
Travis can just get in behind Rodgers, develop the same way Jordan Love did. Because we got to remember, this guy was a Heisman candidate. Probably would have won it if he didn't get injured. He would have been a first, second round pick if he didn't get injured.
Mhm.
And the Jets got him late in the draft. Absolutely, it is potential to be the steal of the draft.
Like I would love if he wasn't injured and I would be able to watch him play in preseason.
Yeah.
But again with Rodgers, he seems like such a down to earth guy. Like he probably like, yeah, I put the team first, but then again, he has those diva moments where you never know how he'll feel.
Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get out of Rodgers anytime. Honestly, maybe halfway through the season, he may just no, I'm not. I'm not
Retire.
even.
Marry
I'm
Danica
not
Patrick.
gonna say it.
Retire.
I'm
I
not
mean,
gonna.
there's
I'm not
honestly,
gonna say it.
yeah, I would not be surprised if Rodgers just ups and retires in the middle of the season.
Pull Andrew Luck, like during the game, he just calls retirement. That'd be fun.
It wouldn't
That'd be so
surprise me.
bad. That would be so bad. But
I think that's a good place to end it. I mean, I don't know. There's so much Jets football to talk about. I mean, week 1 is going to go crazy. I know that the episode after the San Francisco game is going to be insane because we're either going to be happy or we're going to be realistic. So that'll conclude it. Thank you for watching episode 2 of Hitting the Jets. We'll see you soon.